Roel De Vries, thanks for joining me. Let's talk a little bit about Nissan globally. How would you characterize the strength of the Nissan brand right now, and also the challenges that it faces?
So first of all, the strengths are we've solid in every market. We have great coverage all over the world. We play in the key segments in all parts of the world. We have a solid position in most markets, whether they are emerging markets or whether they're more established markets like Europe or Japan or the United States. So we've got an incredibly good foundation in terms of coverage, but also in terms of the loyalty of our customers, the satisfaction with people with our vehicles. So those are the main positives, seen as a very trusted, reliable brand. The challenges we have, I think, like any brand, is to create a stronger emotional engagement with our customers and to make sure that we keep on working on differentiation. We already are seen as a brand that's more exciting, more innovative than other brands, but we have a very big job to increase that lever, to make that far more specific and pronounced, and to increase the social engagement.
So talking about increasing the social engagement and really building that that brand engagement, we're here in Cannes this week.
Yes.
And we were talking earlier, I mean, you have so many tools at your disposal now for telling that overarching brand story, yeah, and creating some consistency globally, which I know that's important to you as well. How do you know what to pick and choose, and how can you be sure that things like Car in a Box, for example, feeds up into the overarching brand story when there's so much available?
Correct. So I think that's the biggest challenge of the marketeer today. How do we make sure that all these opportunities available to us, or the choices we make out of all the opportunities available to us, lead up to something bigger? Personally, I think it's the biggest risk that we currently run, that we start going after many shiny objects that everybody feels good about, right, and then we measure them by things that are not necessarily that important to customers, whether it is likes or hits or views or all these things that a lot of people get very excited about. So my opening comment is that I see that as our biggest challenge. Mm-hmm. Now, how do we make sure that we do the right things? I think as a brand we are very specifically setting our storylines. What do we want to talk about? We don't want to talk about everything. Right. And if we want to talk about specific things like, for example, innovations that make people's lives better, one of the things that we are choosing, then yes, you can make use of many of the opportunities that are presented here, as long as it fits that storyline that you want to build. And then these things build up over time. I think our biggest challenge is to have a longer term view on some of these ideas. If you go after just clever ideas, then there is a lot you can do, but it probably won't lead to something bigger. So that's, I think, the biggest opportunity.
So everybody talks about content these days, right? And creating utility around that. So what can and should content look like for Nissan?
What for me is important is what do you as a brand want to deliver? What are the stories that you want to get across? Mm-hmm. And then against that, you need to develop your content. Now, a lot of people say, well, we can do content, but it's also risk, because if you have random content on 15 subjects, it doesn't lead to anything. It confuses the consumer.
It can be a negative perspective.
Exactly. So we're in a situation where there is plenty of content. There's an abundance of content, and to some extent still, when you spend time here, people try to sell you more content and more platforms and more opportunities, because we have this clever idea and we can do this here and we can do that there. So that is all getting bigger, but I think as marketeers we should go the other way. I think we need to have more specific brand storylines, less content maybe in total, but much more content on those storylines. And the risk I see a bit at the moment, we go after a lot of content on many platforms, and I sometimes use it, and it's a bit derogative, I said there's a lot of hobbyism going on. There's a lot of marketing hobbyism in the sense that we want to out-clever or outwit somebody else because we had the most clever idea there. And then content is risky because it creates confusion.
So let's talk about that. You bring up agencies. You have a unique model where you, not unique to car companies, but you've created Nissan United is sort of an assembly of agencies working on your behalf. Talk a little bit about that. How is it doing? What's the value in it for you, from your perspective?
So we spoke a little bit about these brand stories and consolidation and all the stuff. So the question is, how do you do that? How do you do that if you have 25 different models that you sell in 100 different countries? And we started looking at them, just mapping and say, well, how many people actually are creating content? How many people are sending messages out there? How many agencies do we deal with? And then you find out that we have, I don't know, hundreds of individual agencies. And even within the bigger groups, we have a strong partnerships with Omnicom. Even within those big groups, there are many individual different agencies. And the onus was on the corporation to tie it all together. And my fear is that doesn't work. It's too complex. The reason why we have agencies is because I think marketing communication is a skill. It's a science. It's not something that anyone can do. So the fact that we have agencies is because they're supposed to be those experts. But actually, what's happening more and more is that the onus comes back on us to bring it all together. So what we went to Omnicom with and said, well, we understand that you need certain specialities in different agencies because not everything is the same between creating TV commercials and doing social media. So I'm not saying it's all the same, but it is the job, I think, of the professional big media companies and marketing communication companies to bring that together and to start creating the story. So we created what we call Nissan United. So we said, I don't want to have contracts and relationships with all these agencies. If we need to use all these agencies, that's fair. Single point of contact, but more importantly, they need to become agency agnostic too. It's about how do we get a consistent message to the customer. That's what it's about. It's not about being the best in digital and the best in this and the best in that and the specialized in this and the specialized in that. No. We can be average. Well, I want to be best everywhere, but that's not necessarily the objective. The objective is how do we get an integrated message to the consumer out there? And I think we were losing that. So Nissan United in our case is a concept that's relatively agency agnostic. Of course we have contracts with agencies, but that unit, the job of that unit is to make sure that we have an investment strategy in terms of where the marketing dollars go. We have a content strategy in terms of what are the stories that we want to tell and how do we create the content for that. That sets creative direction. That discussion's been going for a while, but then people said, well, let's go do 360, which to me is the worst on the planet. I never want to hear the word 360 because then they said, we can't do just TV or just this, so we need to do 360. And then what then happens is, well, we go and do everything. Right. That's not the solution either. The question is, if I want to send this message to these people, how do they want to get that message so that it resonates? Exactly. Sometimes it's one channel, maybe it's only TV or only something else, or only PR. Sometimes it's two, sometimes one amplified by the other. But the mainstream of what you do needs to always be that cross-channel, cross-agency, cross-messaging debate and every time a decision around that.